Okay, how's everybody this morning? I've unmuted everybody's microphone. I'm Mark Clement. I'm at VetBizCentral. Can everybody hear me? Can somebody?
Sorry, you overthink the dough. That's too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Say that again?
Yeah.
So
Why don't you go ahead and mute everyone again, and then we'll get back to questions and stuff like that.
We talked over some stuff.
Okay, again, I'm Mark Clement at VetBizCentral. Today we have Tarek Maraba with, he's the president and CEO of Rymys Technology Consultants. And he is here to talk to you about what the VA buys in Ohio. Does your company sell what the VA buys in Ohio? And he is the guru on that. So take it away, Tarek.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Let me turn off this video so you can see. Let's see what we got here. Click the wrong button. There we go. So before we get started, I'm going to let you know, too, that after the webinar, you're going to have a survey. So you can definitely tell us. It's going to pop up on your screen or your mobile devices in order to tell us how we're doing, how the content, and so forth. As Mark said, thank you, Mark, for the introduction. I'm Tarek Maraba, Rymys Technology Consultants. We focus on, of course, the use of technology for helping businesses develop business for the VA, to do business with the VA and the federal government. And our focus, of course, is the VA and veteran businesses as well. I have a 6-year background as a subcontractor to 3 prime SDVOSBs at the VA Small Business Office. I started on that contract from January 2014 to December 2019. And in 2020, when the pandemic happened, I had a decision to make whether I continue doing education training with the Small Business Office, or if I begin to pursue redeveloping the company so I can actually work more closely with small businesses on how to do business with the VA, and really focus on the necessary components of understanding what procurement readiness really means, and just to help them understand that patience, it does take patience to break through, to crack the glass ceiling, so to speak, with regards to the VA. It's, they talk to a lot of different companies, they hold a lot of different conferences and things of that nature, but the whole purpose, of course, is to touch base with the veteran community, the veteran businesses. And of course, having those certifications and those types of certifications as women-owned small business, 8A, and so forth, in addition to the SDVOSB and VOSB status, helps them with the goals, the SBA goals with regards to, what percentage are women-owned, which percentage are 8A. The best scenario, of course, is an SDVOSB or VOSB, which is VA verified veteran company, and having an additional certification. It's always the best of all worlds in that sense. But as far as doing business with the VA, they have a motto called vets first, but not vets only. So they will definitely they will look at the veteran companies first, and they'll also look at what you call the rule of 2. Many of you have heard of that or not have heard of that. What that means is they look, the contracting officers look for 2 or more VA verified companies in the VetBiz database, their database with regards to VA verified companies. And if those companies, if there are 2 or more in that area where they're looking for in terms of the NAICS Code, then that's where they look towards, awarding that type of a contract. So they go in that realm, their process flow as to who they'll work with. What I want to do real quick is also let you guys know that I want to thank Abron Andrews and, of course, Mark, with regards to working with me on bringing these types of trainings to you. One of the things that, Abron and I talked about was, how can we, really take education training to the next level? And it's not just talking about information and giving you an information overload where we have a lot to talk about today. It's kind of showing you that, when we speak about data or we speak about certain components or elements of doing business with the VA, that we want to show you what we're saying is actually true, number one. And here's the backup, the reference of the data and the information and the websites and so forth We can say, go to this website and look for the data. And you'll say, okay, we'll go, but what do we look for? What's going on? How do we know if we're getting the right information, etc. That information does exist.
But I found these results on search.
That information does take time it takes to understand what you're looking for, but it's there. So we just want to let you know that the information that we're presenting is based on just years of experience, of course, looking at it over and over and really understanding what to look for. So that was one of the discussions we came up with. And again, I want to thank Abron and Mark for working with me in terms of allowing to bring this information to you. And having that, the background from the VA, you know, working in you know, on-site at procurement conferences pre-pandemic, Washington, D.C. Convention Center, in classroom sessions, one-on-one sessions, looking at capability statements, understanding pain points of what businesses are going through. You know, we wanted to bring the real-time experience, the real-life experience of dealing with this situation. And you all want to do business with the VA, and definitely we want to crack that glass ceiling, but it's all about past performance. So you'll have heard the capability statement, which you've worked should have. Your past performance is a big key. And then you'll hear the phrase competitive advantage or differentiator. What makes you different than the competition? So there are a lot of pieces that have to be put together in order to really identify. Once you identify what does the VA buy, we want to look close to home. So we've done training with doing business with VA in Michigan, in Ohio. We have one coming up in April for Indiana. If you miss something for Ohio, it's okay to definitely attend the Indiana one to pick up more details or information. But the foundation is the same across the board, and that's the key thing to understand is the foundation. So if you understand that, you'll be able to find data based on your NAICS codes, based on location, based on place of performance, you know, and that's how data is referenced. So again, thank you, Abron and Mark, for working with Rymys and myself to really help bring this information to the community. Again, I gave you a little bit of background on myself, and so I'm teaching from firsthand experience of, you know, training over 7,000 businesses during that 6-year period as a subcontractor, and I take that to heart because as a subcontractor, I wanted to present and prepare data as if I'm doing business as a small business, as a business itself, not just an employee of a company putting together some, you know, slides and saying, okay, this is what you do, but from my perspective as a small business. So looking at that in that sense, you know, I had the privilege and the honor to teach over 7,000 businesses during webinars and events and so forth, this process. And with you guys are aware that a lot of things change, you know, very quickly. So it depends on the time frame. You know, the simplified acquisition threshold contracts, the simplified acquisition threshold has changed, the different components of micro purchases. So things change within the government, the laws, the regulations, the acquisition regulations, and so forth. So, you know, there are a lot of moving parts. So once you have the foundation, it's just change out this carburetor to a new one, change out this brake pad to a new one, and that's the information. So you just, once you have the foundation down, that's the capability of doing that. I did have the privilege of also writing the procurement readiness and doing business with VA reference guides. Those guys are the A to Z on how to do the generalizations of doing business with the VA, how to prepare yourself and make sure you are what they call procurement ready to do business with the VA. And then there's the doing business with VA. Now that information continues to evolve every day because, like I said, you know, you have to change out the spark plugs, the carburetor, brake pads, etc. Information changes in certain areas every month, every year, and so forth. But if you have the foundation of the information, you know where to plug that information to, you know, the change, and you also know how to identify how that change affects the rest of the elements, and that's key. So that's my mission as Rymys Technology Consultants, is to be the one, you know, build the Rymys into the one-stop consulting business capable of helping businesses achieve strategically planned business goals and objectives. And our vision, of course, is within the next 5 years, Rymys will transform how businesses achieve federal contracting success by leveraging teamwork, technology, and business processes. So that's what I look to do, is build these partnerships, build these components in place in order to bring information and bring efficiency and effectiveness to businesses, nationwide and so forth. So it can be nationwide, local, etc. And the big partnership with Abron and the VetBiz, Veteran Business Outreach Center in Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana, of course, is a stepping stone to, bringing you this information. So it's a very big privilege for me to be able to do this. Today, we're going to talk about your competition, your customer, interpreting data for government. We're going to do a deep dive also. And the deep dive, let me just say this, that there is so much information, that there are so many different ways of presenting information, and pieces of today's webinar, for example, will eventually become its own webinar. And what I mean by that is deep dive into data and going specific, data points, going into search criteria, going into elements like that to really show you how to use a system. Today, we're just going to touch upon the basics and show you a little bit about, the state you're in, Ohio, and what actually is going on there with regards to procurement data, with regards to expenditures, and so forth. So by the end of today's session, you're going to understand the importance of knowing your customer. You're going to understand the importance of knowing your competition. So when I ask you, do you know who your competition is? And the answer I get from many companies, they say, yeah, my competition is this company and that company outside in the commercial world. But do you know who your competition is inside the government? Who's already doing business with them? Are they a veteran company? Are they not a veteran company? If they're not a veteran company, how did they get a contract? Was it their past performance? Did they show the government that they can sustain success over long period of longevity and bring solutions to where problems occur? Because problems always occur, but the key is how you solve those problems. Understand the value of data, how important data is, and what, even little data can provide a lot of information, how to interpret that information. Understanding the importance of organizing data for strategic development purposes, and understand how to use available resources to drive your competitive advantage, make you different, your differentiators. So as you can see, I just translated competitive advantage into differentiators. That's how words are actually used and transformed within the degree of success and understanding how the government works. So also during today's session, we're going to pull up poll questions. So I'll be asking you some questions. You'll pull them up on your screen. You'll answer the questions, and we'll go over the answers. And I'm going to identify, why certain ones are correct. Some could be a good answer, but then there's a better one. It's kind of like one of those. And the questions are not meant to trip you up. They're there to see truly if how you understand and interpret the information being presented. So it's for our knowledge as well, in terms of, hey, was this information presented clearly enough? Was it could it have been spoken from a different angle, different perspective? How did you interpret it as opposed to how do we interpret it, in terms of working with, sharing it. So your customer, your competition. As you know, VA is one of the largest procurement and supply agencies of the federal government. And with regards to that, VA operates a nationwide system of hospitals, clinics, regional offices, veteran integrated service networks. So you've all heard of VISNs. So the VISNs itself include the clinics, the hospitals, and so forth. Regional offices, we looked at 9 program offices, OIT, the small business offices, one, different procurement office of procurement, logistics, construction and facilities management, etc. So there's different processing, there's different offices, program offices, and so forth. You have the Veterans Benefits Administration, Veterans National Cemetery Administration, of course, the Veterans Health Administration. So within those 3 administrations, you have 9 program offices with regards to the different moving parts. So everything is supportive in that sense. So as you can see, the VA is very large. It's huge. And so there's a place in there somewhere where you can do business with them It depends on where you fit and how do you determine that. So now you got to know the VA. You know, when I talk to small businesses, sometimes they're dealing with, you know, pharmaceuticals, and they're saying, you know, we talk to them, say, yeah, I contacted the Pharmaceutical Office of Laboratory Development, and we're in the process with this. Now I'm going to throw this out there. Sometimes they're like, yeah, we have a grant from the NIH to work with the VA, or we have a, you know, grant from this university to work with the VA and do, you know, the development or research or something. So there's from infancy to full blown, you know, life cycle processes in the 3rd year, the 5th year, et cetera, maturity. So there's different areas of a spectrum of where you can do business with the VA as well. And that's key. But that's knowing your customer. If you don't know your customer, then you're kind of digging up the wrong tree. And, you know, my purpose is to be more efficient and be more effective at pursuing those opportunity types. So even if you find an opportunity, for example, and Sam, and you say, okay, we want to pursue this, do you really understand the nature of the requirements? And do you understand like what they're looking for? And to really be able to do it, can you, with absolute certainty, your company can perform on the requirements? And that's a key. So let's look at some quick facts. Veteran population in Indiana, 741,000. Compensation and pensions, just quick information. Construction, education and vocal rehab, insurance, annuities. Just like I said, just quick demographics to get an idea of what, you know, what the VA looks for in Ohio, where their expenditures are in terms of what they're expensing. Medical care, 3 million. So total expenditures in terms of the population, the veteran population, is over 10 million. And this data is from the Veterans Analysis and Statistics Quick Facts with from the VA's Vet Data Center. With regards to the business orientation, we're talking about 982,000 small businesses in the state of Ohio. We're talking about 395 VA verified STVOSPs and VOSPs in the state of Ohio. So we have many small business owners today on today's webinar, and we're talking about 395 of them. So the number is extraordinarily large. Not all these companies have contracts with the VA, but they are there. And in terms of the services, professional services, construction, where the focus is, healthcare. So you look at healthcare, construction, other, you know, services, and professional, scientific, and technical services are your big expenditures in that sense, you know, companies wise. But you look at the different size, the different structure. So it doesn't matter if you have 1 to 19 employees, or, you know, 20 to 499, for example. There's going to be money spent for your business and acquired in terms of contract awards based on your capabilities of doing business with the VA. Do you bring, what value do you bring? So when they look at technical aspects, you know, we look at, say, FAR Part 13, FAR Part 14, FAR Part 15. FAR Part 13, for example, simplified acquisition threshold contracts. FAR Part 15, open source contracts with regards to negotiation. And we're also looking at two elements that they look to. You may have heard of LPTA, or lowest price technically acceptable. That is a standardized selection, and during the selection process, saying that's the lowest price technically acceptable on this contract. We can't take any less. So if a company comes in and tries to underbid that number, we can't accept it, even though it's a great price. There's no way possible they can perform what we need them to do for that much. And then they look at the best value. So, okay, it's much higher than what we want to spend, but let's look at what we get in return for that additional expenditure. So those are the components, two of the variables that they talk about. The contracting officers talk with the program directors, talk with the project team, the contracting officer representative, who usually is a project manager or federal manager on the team. So there's a lot involved in terms of the requirements and who to ask and who to deal with. So knowing the statistics is very important, because you just have a generalized idea of who your competition is. So These 395 companies are all looking to do business with the VA. And the interesting thing is that sometimes you get verified. Some companies don't do business with VA; they do business with other agencies like DoD, HUD, different agencies in that sense, SBA, GSA, depending on the situation and their capabilities. And they use that information, or they use that performance, the work, as past performance to come to the VA and say, hey, we're a veteran company, we're VA verified in your system, and oh yeah, we have past performance by doing the work with this agency, and this agency, or for this many years and so forth. So there's a lot of different combinations of how you utilize your experiences and data, and there's a lot of strategies to build based on the available data and how to move forward. So that's a big part of it as well. So let's look at, for example, the top NAICS codes. So you guys are 339112, 236220, and you're asking yourself right now, where did he get this information? Oh, well, I paid $422,000, for this data. I'm just kidding. Sam. So there are companies that you have to pay a little bit of money, nothing major, but a little bit for a variation of the data that's more specific. SAM gives you generalized information. If you're all registered in SAM, most probably, for those companies that are, and you can work on opportunity data. So you go to the data tab and you go do some quick analytics. There's some already predefined reports that are there. And there's also the ad hoc. I love the ad hoc because guess what? I can build my customized reports that identify, okay, the agency, to identify either the NAICS codes or the agency, the state of Ohio, from this period to this period. Mark and I were talking earlier, and it's like, when you show data, where's the relevant data points? So October 1 to September 30 is the agency fiscal year. There are different ways of pulling data to say, okay, when was the contract signed? It could have been signed in July, but it didn't start until October. So there are different areas of data points that you can choose from, but the most significant, of course, is when did the contracts start in terms of, okay, October 1, the expenditure is October 1, the procurement, to September 30. That was my key to present data. So it pulled out some information with regards to, okay, surgical and medical instrument manufacturing, 192 million. Then you're looking at commercial and institutional building construction, 15 million. And then you're looking at other commercial services, 10 million. And it keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. And of course, there's many more. So we looked at administrative management and general management consulting services, 7 million. I mean, that's still a pretty large number. And of course, with the pandemic and so forth, so the focus changed, of course, for the medical components and the medical care with regards to the pandemic. But as far as like the additional services, of course, they continued to purchase and be awarded these contracts. So this data is relevant because it identifies a couple things. And again, the spreadsheets that I pull out are, have, 15 columns of data. And of course, building a pivot table, you create kind of different areas of information. And this, you see the NAICS code, you see the description. And this is what I like very much so, because when you look at contract opportunities in SAM and you look at what's been awarded, and I like to look at the history, because the history tells you what's coming in the future. The product service code, 6515, YIDA, 3695, Y1DA, Q402. So that's a specific product or a service that was ordered. So if it's a task order type contract, in this industry, we ordered this service. That's how it's that's how it looks. And especially with the consolidation of GSA and schedules, and we have one coming, we have schedules training coming up next week. I believe it's next week with the schedules. And then the one after is retail. So in the next 3 Tuesdays, I'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. But as far as that component, so you have to look at the numbers and you understand Well, why do I need the product service code? Well, you need the product service code because that identifies, pinpoints the actual service or the product that was purchased on the contract. That's where you have to be the expert in. So that understanding what the government is, how they're awarding contracts and what they're choosing and selecting to what they need is based on the industry and the NAICS and the product service code. So now we're going to go to true false, some polling questions. Take a look at your screen and let me launch, let's see, number 1. So true or false, good data helps businesses develop effective strategies. So you guys are going to order it. You guys are going to take the poll. And again, the question is very simple. Good data helps business develop effective strategies. Give you a couple minutes to answer that question, and then we're going to move on to the next. And it's a basic question. It's just the understanding, like, hey, how important is data? All right, I am going to show the answer, and we get to talk about it for a second. So you guys all picked true, which I'm so happy because it's true. I mean, it's simple. Good data helps businesses develop effective strategy. Without it, guess what? It's kind of hard to develop a strategy. I mean, you have data, but is it good data? Do you know if it's good data? And that's the key, knowing what to get and why are you getting the data is key. And that really defines good data. So let's go to a second question. And talk about the second question is based on good data or government contracting focused data. Reference to some of the points. Good data or government contracting focused data takes time to gather, is necessary for strategy development, requires expert analysis, helps define business processes, all of the above. So if you think about it, good data or government contracting focused data takes time to gather, is necessary for strategy development, requires expert analysis, helps define efficient business processes, all of the above. Is it one or all or? Okie doke. I am going to close this and I'm going to share the answers with everyone. Let's see what we got here. And you guys are seeing, okay, you guys picked all of the above. What I'm really happy about is you all picked all of the above. That's the key. Good data takes time to gather. It's not the easiest thing to do, and it's definitely time consuming, but it's an absolute necessity. Is necessary for strategy development, absolutely, because you don't know which way to go if you don't know who's buying what you do NAICS code wise. Have you looked at other contract award, old contracts history wise to see what product service code they've used? Have you updated your capability statement to reference that product, that product or that service based on a task order? So if a contracting officer, program director will not look at it from the context of oh, I need to buy in this NAICS code and that product service. No, they say, well, I need a training program. I need specialists who do this. I need you know, a team that does this, and this is what my focus is, and so forth. Then when the contract is put together, the requirements and the discussion points and so forth, then comes in your contracting officer, core contracting officer representative, who again is a member of the team with the program director, as well as the contracting officer, and they go back and forth in discussion. And lo and behold, your contracting officer goes, NAICS code, pop, product service code, pop, and that's where it comes out on the street. So that's how things are put together. You know, like you mix it in a bowl, and there comes the pancake. So yes, it's all of the above, and that's great that you guys understand that it's not. Some of you could have picked takes time together. Some of you, I've had this instance, is necessary for strategy development, requires expert analysis, and that's where I, you know, in the beginning when I say, hey, we're going to talk about, you know, we're going to suggest why, you know, why an answer is right or wrong. So technically, it takes time together is a correct answer. Is necessary for strategy development is a correct answer. Requires expert analysis is a correct answer. And helps define efficient business processes is a correct answer. But all four of them are as well. And so that's kind of like, you pick one or did you pick them all? And then it's like, well, why did you pick takes time to gather over is necessary for strategy development? So you got the gist of the importance of data and how it helps, the right data. And that's why I say good data. That's the important piece. So now let's get back to interpreting data for government contracting. Yay. So how do you look at it? So in conversation, when you have conversations with businesses and you're talking to them and saying, or, you know, directors or whomever, you know, your client, potential clients, we do pharmaceuticals, we do perishable, we do equipment, supplies, maintenance, repair, building, construction, we do something, orthopedic aids, medical gases, something. So when I first started with the VA, it was, you know, I was met, you know, I had meetings with the executive director. You may have heard of his name, Director Mr. Tom Lenny, and my the executive director of the Small Business Office, OSDBU, and my director, Ms. Chanel Bankston Carter, and some of the team members. Milagros Ortiz, for example, was my team member, and she was in charge of, you know, she was tasked with putting together the doing business with VA, procurement readiness guides, and so forth. And my discussions with Mr. Lenny were, and you know, the team, Chanel and Milagros, it was basically, you know, we have had people try this for a couple years, and this is all they give me. This is the same stuff they give me, pharmaceuticals, and this is the same stuff that's already on the website, and this is the same stuff that's already there. And there's no hot sauce, there's no secret sauce, there's no spice, there's nothing different than, you know, they just keep giving me the same thing and over and over. And I said, well, this doesn't tell me anything. I mean, if I'm a small business and I'm like, okay, what do you buy? I mean, you spend over, you know, $14 trillion a year on what, these 7 or 8 categories? There's a lot. There's a lot of other ways to determine. I mean, I showed you guys a slide a few minutes ago with NAICS codes. I mean, contract opportunities are relevant to NAICS codes, industry, product service codes, the actual task order for the service. So in the state of Ohio, that's how they do it as well. So if you do a run for Ohio and you do the data, you're going to get those top NAICS codes for Ohio. You're going to get the top product services for Ohio. Okay, and the importance of Ohio is this: is your business capable of doing, of course, local, regional, or national? And I myself, I have a client who in several around the country. One in Florida in particular is blanketing Florida, and we're in the process of growing, you know, taking that element of just, they've blanketed Florida, and now it's time to grow in terms of their processes, like regionally and nationally, and in really understanding their process for, you know, onboarding new employees and staff members and team and so forth. So there's different strategies now. So they've put together a formula that absolutely works 100%. So the question is, do we look for other SDVOSPs, VSPs in other areas of the country that do what they do and partner and say, listen, we have secret sauce that we can offer. So that's where the partnership comes into play. So we come into Ohio and say, hey, we do this. VA, we want to do this with you because we have this and we have the secret sauce to do this. And even though our partners in Florida or our partners in Ohio, we can do it nationally. So just from this slide alone, conversation occurs based on the data that you have, and that's the key element. So let's look at it a little bit more detailed. So we talked about simple, and we're back to, guess what? Yes, we're back to that slide again to say, let's look at this again, pharmaceuticals, medical, perishable, etc. But no, 339112, 236220. You want to contract with the VA? This is their language. So this is the program director, the team, the management team, going through the process. This is the contracting officer. This is what you see on the street. This is what you see in SAM under opportunities. These are the requirements you write for. So the requirements that you write, the information you present, it goes into this bucket. And in this bucket is a dollar amount of how much money we're going to spend cumulatively for the whole year, or just for the next 5 years. So this is how they speak. This is their language. That's why it's important. I'm going to throw a capability statement tip in. Do not put more than 3 to 5 NAICS codes on your capability statement at one given time. If you have 14 of them, you should have 3, 4 capability statements. Every person you talk to should be an itemized focus in terms of what your specialty is. You give someone a capability statement with 10 NAICS codes on it, they're going to be like, which one are you good at? You're going to say, well, we're good at the second one. Well, no, the first one should be the primary one, and the second and third ones, fourth and fifth, depending on the industry, are support ones. Meaning you're very good at that. This is your primary, and here's how these other 2 industries work into our industry now, how we utilize those services in those industries to be an expert in this one. There's a way of presenting yourself as an expert in those, but not more than 3 to 5. I like 3. 3 doesn't confuse the situation. And it tells the contracting officer, it tells the program director, because when they look at your capability statement, they'll say, wow, okay, you have these, this is fantastic. I mean, I want to know exactly what you do, where your strong point is. This is what we're trying to do. Well, this is what we're trying to do too. This is fantastic. You're a VA verified company. We're veteran owned, but we're not yet a VA verified company. But guess what? We have a partner company who's right here. This is John. This is Samantha. And we work with them so we're the project team. They're the primary subcontractor project team. So data helps you build your project team, because that's who's doing the work. Ohio is in Vision 10. You guys have seen or hopefully attended the Doing Business with VA webinars with Pac Dewhurst and Abron and Veteran Business Outreach Center. They do it once a quarter with regards to really understanding Vision 10, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan. But when we look at Vision 10 in terms of the health visions and the interpretation of when you go to this map and you click on that link, what are you going to see? Well, you're going to see money. You're going to see money, what VA buys. You're going to see everything in that sense. So when you define this, you're going to see this. These are the companies in the city, NAICS Code, Product Service Code, with regards to money expenditures. $230 million obligated. Network 10. $230 million were obligated to Network 10. You see that 10 in the middle of your screen? $230 million. It's a lot of money. So somewhere in there is a contract for you. The question is, are you able to handle that? Are you able to sell your company, package your company to the right people and say, hey, we want to meet you? Pre-pandemic, VA Small Business Office was having meetings and putting on events with focusing on different certifications. I talked about women-owned small businesses. There was a women's owned small business push. There's an 8A, certification push, hub zone push, but they were VA verified veteran companies as well. So if you can't do that, if you're not in a position to get VA verified, other companies already are or are in the process of becoming. That's where you partner. You don't throw in the towel, you don't give up, because they need you too. Because you provide a service that they don't have. Together, you provide the solution. So 230 million obligated for network 10. Okay, you're looking at Toledo, Mansfield, Cleveland, Canton, Lima, Springfield, Dayton, Cincinnati, Huntington, etc. There you go. So now you have some quick information. Are you going to call? Who are you going to call? You're going to call nobody yet. You're going to start gathering information. This is what the information gathering is all about. You're not going to talk to anyone. Veterans Integrated Service Vision 10. You're going to talk about My Transformation. You're going to start learning more about the newly integrated Vision 10. 10 different medical centers, independent Columbus, Ohio, ambulatory clinics, a network of 63 community-based outpatient clinics. Vision 10 provides personalized, proactive, patient-centric care for more than 685,000 veterans. You're going to start gathering this information. You need to know this information before you call anybody. That's the key, gathering information. So what is important about this map? And here's a link to this map. You can go click on this map, go to this map on the VA's website. You can click on Ohio, okay? And it's going to give you some information. What kind of information? Well, it's going to tell you the Veterans Health Administration in terms of who to contact, some contact information. But you're still not going to call just yet, okay? You're going to talk to Veterans Health Administration, medical centers, outpatient clinics, etc., Veterans Benefits Administration, National Cemetery Administration. So this is based on what? This is based on what your focus is in. But these are areas of different locations. And when you find these locations and you find these medical histories in the VISNs wise, then you're talking about different program offices. So from one conversation, it's going to point you to another conversation. And that's a key place. That's a key thing to know. So we want to go to the next question. We're going to answer some more polling questions based on information. And again, my goal is to emphasize information so it pulls up and you say like, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to see. This is what we're going to ask. And this is what we want to understand. Call the true or false. And I mentioned this and I emphasized it. True or false. Call the first number you find without knowing what to say. Oh God, do I come across this one all the time. True or false, call the first number you find without knowing what to say. And all of you are going to answer the right answer. Okay, I'm going to close it out and I'm going to show you the answer with regards to what you guys chose. False. True or false? Call the first number you find without knowing what to say. Oh, true. No, it's false. You guys were all 100% right. Absolutely. When I first started, Rymys outside of the VA, I got a question from a company, an 8A company. Called me up and said, hey, I'm going to attend this conference. I'm going to, plan on meeting a lot of people. What should I say? Excuse me? I'm giving you the honest to goodness truth on this. They called up, had a meeting. I'm attending this conference. What should I say? Well, I was kind of at a loss of words. You're going to go to a procurement conference in your state to meet buying representatives in this agency, the VA, and you don't know what to say to them? What's the first thing I thought to my head? You have no clue what you're doing. I would not go. If you go, just introduce yourself in terms of an up and coming. Don't say you're doing this and you're doing that and you're doing this and you're doing that. Just say we're introduced, you're introducing yourself. That's touch point number one. The more they see you, the more they start taking shape that you exist, and they start building the credibility wrap where it's like, you guys have all heard of people do business with people they know and trust. So you start building that credibility. Just use that time frame for that purpose. During my time with the VA, I met several of the same companies over and over at the different procurement fairs, because they kept coming and they kept talking and they kept learning and they kept shaking hands and introducing themselves, and then to the director and to this person. And then guess what? When they got those meetings, oh, I remember you. Oh, yeah. How you doing? I remember we talked for a few minutes about this. Yes, we just got FDA approval and we launched this. We just got EPA approval and we launched that. We just got a contract with DOD or this, and this, and we're looking to expand into the VA now for this, and this is what we've accomplished. That's fantastic. Here's my card. Let's set up a meeting for next week. When that happens, that means the director went and told their EA, executive assistant, you're going to get a call from so-and-so. Here's their card. Give them a call, set up a meeting for Tuesday. Find a slot in my schedule. That happens. You said something, and they started trusting you after all the times they get to see you. The frustration in companies I talk to, they've never seen us before. We've never done this, and they didn't give us the contract the first time. And we went to, the post-award meeting and said, why did we didn't get the contract? Well, we don't know who you are. We've never seen you. You didn't give us the right information that we wanted. I mean, you were close, but you didn't meet this criteria, and you didn't answer this question on the requirements analysis, and we didn't feel comfortable giving you a $2.2 million contract over 5 years for the first your first one. And that's the key. So if you don't know your business and the data, don't go cold calling anybody just to start being cool and say, hey, I can name drop a couple people and say I talked with this person, that person. Well, did they give you a contract? No. Well, when you name drop and you talk to these people, you talk to them with numbers. You talk to them with exact data of your company. You talk to them with confidence. You want them to give you a $5 million contract? Then talk to them with confidence. And don't write it off and say, oh, they already picked someone. Yeah, maybe they did this time, but next time they're going to pick someone else. And if they don't, guess what? Partner with them. They're always looking for personnel and staffing because people come and go. Change happens. I've witnessed that very often. So there sometimes areas are revolving doors, and they're looking for staffing, or projects grow, they need more people. So always be available. It takes one time for you to get that break. Hey, we'll subcontract with you. We have 2 people that can apply right now for the position. So you're working on that piece. You bring in 2 people from your company to be a part of that contract. That's how it works. It takes time. Hey, if I work with you, how fast can you get a contract? 6 months, 3 months? Like, you know what? If you want a contract tomorrow, then call, do a Google search for a company that will get you a contract tomorrow. But if you want to do it right for longevity, it takes a year, 2 years, sometimes 3. Because a lot of building underneath the foundation that you didn't have takes time to build. And it just takes time to do. It's hard to accept, but it's true. Guess what I got for you? That's right. Another question. Knowing, this is a tongue twister. Knowing how to interpret the data is blank important than gathering the data. Is less important, equally important, is more important, is not important at all, or none of the above. Knowing how to interpret the data is equally important than in gathering the data. Is less important or more important? Is equally important, is not important, or is equally important? So it's kind of like a fill in the blank. Few more minutes on the question, guys, and then I'm going to move on because we got more stuff to show. All right, I'm going to pull up the question and let me share the results with you guys. Okay, so we have knowing how to interpret the data is equally important than gathering the data. We have knowing how to interpret the data is more important than gathering the data. So let's look at C first. Is more important than gathering the data? Well, if you don't gather the data or gather the right data, how can you interpret the information? I can see how you say, well, you got the data, but interpreting the data is more important than gathering the data, or interpreting the data is more important than gathering it, okay? Purpose of this question, again, is to re-emphasize the importance of data in interpreting data. So yes, the correct answer in terms of perception of your perception of data, knowing how to interpret the data is equally as important than gathering the data, So the question kind of is a little, you reword the question a little bit of the elements, but it's equally important because you have to gather good data and you have to interpret the data. If you don't gather good data, it's hard to interpret good strategy, good processes in place. So that's the key. If it's a tongue twister, then I know that this question I can clean it up a little bit with regards to just rewording it a bit so it's more clear in terms of when you knowing how to interpret the data is equally as important as gathering the data, is more important than gathering. So I can change the words up a little bit based on the question. But you guys get the idea. Here we're about teaching the basics very well. And so we want to make sure that you understand the interpretation of a question or the content in that terms. So let's go for a deep dive. There we go. Deep dive into data, the building blocks of success. So let's look at some data real quick. And we've interpreted some of this. Now, these are raw data sets from, no, sometimes my brain doesn't work. Not very often, though. So pivot tables, they don't look very beautiful or clean, but they give you some specifics. Okay, we're talking about companies, we're talking about cities, we're talking about different locations, product service codes, some of dollars obligated. So these are some of the columns that you come up with. Types of set-asides, multiple items, it's at the dollars obligated. These are filters in a pivot table. Like I said, this is this is interpretation of data of what you're looking for. So there are so many ways to interpret the data or build the pivot table based on what you're looking for. And of course, you're looking for some of the data when we talked about, so you see, for example, Fairfax Station, which is probably in Virginia. Okay, this company had a contract with company in Ohio for Ohio. So there's interpretation of where these companies are located. Look at the product service code. The service code H946, 57,000 was identified for that code. Okay, 703, 313, 7044, 256, 236, 1848. These are phone numbers. Point Breeze Communications. So you get the idea. So these are informationals based on, contact these companies and so forth. But you have to build a strategy. Hey, how you doing? My name is so-and-so. And here's the tough part as to why a lot of companies like yourselves don't necessarily pick up the phone and call these companies. First of all, they think it's very difficult to get in touch with the right people. In the beginning, I've myself have called companies to make reference points and partnership options and opportunities and so forth. And sometimes you never get an answer, you just get a voicemail. Well, if that's the case and you never get someone to talk to, then that tells me that the company doesn't have the capability of, answering the phones, or they choose not to, or that's kind of like the business practice that they decide to do. And not take that information or want to find out more, etc. And that tells me, well, maybe they don't have the capability of doing the business, number one. Number two, it's not good business practice to not call back and say, hey, I read over your email, your proposal, and, I am interested, but let's discuss further as to how we will work, the synergy of how it could work. Let's do some real-time examples as to what it would work. And play those real-time examples, role play the phone call, anticipate the questions or the devil's advocate scenario that will occur, like, okay, you say this, well, what happens if this happens, kind of thing. So play those roles in your, those back and forths, in your office, with a partner, with discussion, and practice those information. It's like practicing will help you speak clearer and identify quick responses, answers that you already have and know and can answer. So that's a key thing. So this is just again, just by a little bit of data, it presents this information. So we look at it further. Okay, so Point Breeze, now we broke it down into the NAICS Code. They're located in Sweet Valley, 1417 State Street. I know where that is. Here's the phone number. Here's what they were contracted with. SPS Industrials, TTL, etc. NAICS Code 334111. Okay, total obligation for that NAICS Code, 44,713,000. These guys were awarded 328,000 of that money. Okay, now you guys see UED equals DUNS and so forth. Well, unique entity ID is the new entity ID in SAM that has been awarded. Any company that's in there now has that ID as well as the DUNS number. The DUNS number is eventually going away, period. You're not going to have both. So right now there's an overlap, but your UEID is the one that's going to stand fast. Let's go to a polling question. True or false, gathering data is just one of the many processes needed to review data. True or false, gathering data is just one of the many processes needed to review data. Excellent. So you're understanding from what I see of the answer, you guys are understanding that there's a process and there are many processes involved or sub-processes involved in getting there. It's not just one thing and that's it. And that's the key. Yes, you guys think we like polls, but these are again, we have to know that the content we're presenting is clear and it makes sense. Okay, I'm going to share the answer with you guys. You all chose true. So if some of you chose false, then we missed something. Gathering data is just one of the processes needed to review data. False. Okay, did you choose false because you just wanted to? Did you choose false because you don't believe that gathering data is one of the processes involved? There's a reason why a person would have chosen that. But in this case, the information is presented clearly and precise. And the emphasis of today's session is on data and the importance of good data and how important data is, and that data is actually one piece of the pie. It's one piece of the puzzle, one piece of the process. And there's a lot of ways to get the data. So now we're going to jump to, guess what? Where do we find the data? So let's go find the data. So I talked about SAM. Now, one of these days, I'd love to give a session, because we're already almost out of time. So I want to run through some of these slides and talk about, get a few questions. SAM has taken the new SAM, which used to be beta.sam.gov, but is now sam.gov. It's the all-in-one. It's FPDS. It's the subnet. It's the all the contracting data and so forth inside one, all-in-one system. So now in this system, you can go and do contracting opportunities, contract data, hierarchy, gets information. I go to the data bank. The standard reports are there. You can go pull them. Some of them, have a lot of information. Some of them don't, based on product service code, etc., geography, and so forth. Contract data reports. I like to build ad hoc reports when I'm identifying, when I'm working with a client, saying, okay, these are your NAICS codes. This is where we basically go through the process and find out, your NAICS code, who's buying what, where. And that's a key element. So SAM is a big part of it. SAM is free. It just takes time to identify it. If you have 2 or 3, 4 or 5 people, remember we talked about Ohio, small company, 1 to 20 employees, maybe 3, that kind of thing. You don't have time to dedicate to this stuff because it's a day after day thing. Once you pull the data, you have to go through and build the reports and so forth. If you have someone who does the pivot tables and so forth, that's great. But it's just going through and pulling the data and manipulating the reports, pulling the reports. Sometimes you have some issues with SAM and it doesn't give you the accuracy. You contact the federal help desk, you get some assistance, and then you start pulling reports correctly and everything works. So there's different variations and different, you got to account for hiccups and things like that. But the data is here. It's also where you get the contracting opportunities, award history, and so forth. USA spending, you can see which agency spent what where. Of course, we're talking about the VA, we're talking about Ohio. So you can break it down further into that. So there's different areas, different websites will give you different information. So it's putting it all together in that sense. That's a key piece. Office of Procurement, Acquisition, and Logistics, OPAL with the VA. Again, this is information about, we talked about doing business with the VA. What does VA buy? Find a location based on, where you want to do work. So there's different pieces that you get from different websites and different things, moving parts that you kind of look at and say, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to get this information. So you just go start talking around, you start looking for information and data, and guess what? You have that option to continue to look, gather, put together, ask yourself, what information do I get from this website? What information do I get from this website, etc. And that's key. Yes, I like polls. We like polls because we like to see what you guys, Let's see, where are we? There we are. So there you go. I'm going to launch this one. Where can you find free government contracting data? Veterans Affairs website, SAM, USA Spending, BNC, or ABNC. This one's an easy one, guys. All right, on this particular question, I take, based on the answer, this was kind of a trick question. I didn't mean it to be. It shouldn't have been, but it's on me completely because I didn't want to make it that difficult. I shall explain now. I guarantee if the question was asked, if the answer was changed, and I will make sure it's changed for the next session, B and C or A, B, and C. If I had A, B, and C, it would have said Veterans Affairs, SAM, and USA Spending, the three that I showed you. B and C, you saw B and C in terms of Veterans Affairs and, I'm sorry, SAM and USA Spending. And yes, definitely, absolutely 100% right. All of the above. Veterans Affairs website, SAM website, USA Spending, and BNC, which is SAM and USA Spending. So all of the above. So I will change the answer to be more representational and less tricky. But those who answered B and C, that's correct, but also Veterans Affairs website. So that's where the step, kind of like the little trip came. But you're not wrong for B and C, but all of the above is a better answer. Let's just say that. So at least you know SAM and USA Spending. Those two give you the data component of information. So if you weigh it towards data, that's legitimately positive question or answer, but all of the above definitely hits home to all of them. Okay, we're going to go to one more here. Okay, true or false? Gathering data and developing and implementing strategy requires expertise. True or false? Gathering data and developing and implementing strategy requires expertise. Okay, going to close this one out. Going to share the answers. So we have true or false, gathering data and developing and implementing strategy requires expertise. Well, I'm going to hope that the false was kind of hey, I'm just going to answer false. But the majority, absolutely. True. Gathering data and developing and implementing strategy requires expertise. You have to know what to get. You have to know how to interpret the information that you get, the data. And then, of course, you have to be an expert at it, or it's going to take you forever to get it. And then you're going to ask yourself many questions as to, am I getting the right data? Do I have the right information? Is this current? Is this going to help me better plan my strategy in terms of what, not only what they buy, but what I'm selling? And does my product fit, does my service fit this strategy, etc.? And those are some of the key elements of that. So definitely thank you for participating. As you know, we like to give polls. We like to identify, just provide information, ask some questions. Provide information, ask some questions. Make sure we're on the same page and we're working together. So now we're going to head into the wrap up. You're now able to understand the importance of knowing your customer. The VA is large an organization as is in terms of, especially in Ohio. Understand the importance of knowing your competition. We talked about some data in Ohio with regards to the number of STVOSBs, VOSBs, the veteran companies in Ohio. So we're not talking about just total businesses of 302,000. We're talking about 320 plus veteran companies. Understanding the value of data. Now you know the value of data. Understand the importance of organizing data for strategic development purposes. Understand how to use available resources to drive your competitive advantage. Those are some key points. Definitely some key points. We talked about, there's some links. What I will do is we'll get the presentation to you guys after the webinar. Send them out to you guys so you can have a copy of the presentation. There was a hiccup with adding the PDF version today. So if you want to write me, you can write me at Tarek, T-A-R-E-K, at rymys.com, RYMYS.com. I'll send you the presentation directly, or definitely write Mark at VetBizCentral to vetbizcentral.org. Also let them know you want the presentation. We'll send that out to you. You'll have some links in here for you to be able to review the information, present, etc. We also talked about some webinars for next week. You guys either got the email or you got the invitation from LinkedIn. I'm going to put up an invitation for LinkedIn and re-emphasize next week's the next two webinars. Next week is introduction to GSA and VA schedules. Very important you guys attend if you guys want to get product or services on schedules. Because a lot of times, now that GSA has consolidated schedules, they're doing a lot of purchases off of schedules. So getting on contract is an important strategy. And there are many times, with my clients that I'm implementing like three or four different strategies at the same time. Because one will take 3 months to become something. One will take 6 to 12 months. One will take this. Different ones will take different time frames. Getting on schedules will take 3 to 6, maybe 9 months. The review process, putting together the proposal, the contract amounts, the dollars and cents, and so forth. I mean, that stuff takes time. Then you submit it, and you wait for review, editing, and so forth. Certification, go through the certification process while you're doing that, and so on and so forth. So there's different components going on at the same time. We also talk about introduction to federal retail sales in 2 weeks from today, and that is doing business with Army Air Force Exchange, doing business with the Marine Corps Exchange, with the Navy Exchange, Coast Guard Exchange, the Veterans Canteen Services, over 220 storefronts inside of the hospitals. So with regards to sales of products and merchandise. There's also, we talk about the retail stores like the Walmarts and the Costcos in terms of your exchanges, Army, Air Force, and Marine Corps, Navy, etc. We're also talking about the online business, distribution of product online. We're talking about electronic data interchanges. We're talking about account distribution centers and so forth, drop shipping and all that stuff like that. So that's a big one too. That's another avenue to pursue while pursuing government contracts. So if you have those types of products or services, those are the kinds you can present there. We have a couple more in April as well. We'll be sending out information on that. So you'll definitely be able to go through that information. So definitely stay tuned. I definitely say get in contact with me on LinkedIn. I have two for Rymys, the company, and for myself as the instructor and myself in terms of LinkedIn connections. But I definitely recommend following both following me, connecting with me, and following the company, Rymys. We talk about our partnerships with VetBizCentral and what we're working with clients and going from there. So we'll definitely send you the information. So let's go to questions. But before we do, I'm going to do something real quick. I'm going to jump out of this in terms of that. I want to show you something really quick with regards to the computer. So you guys should be able to see my screen. Okay. So what I want to show you is, let's talk about award data and interpreting data. So we're talking about Veterans Affairs. So you guys saw the pivot table. So this is what we look at in terms of how data can really present you with a really even a more brighter insight as to strategically build your strategy. Why is this important? I showed you raw data, but when you see it in a dashboard like this, look at where the mega purchases are, September. Look at where the small, okay, we're starting to get to know everyone. This is why it takes 1 year, 2 years, because you might be here and you're already missing this component of contracts, which are already being worked out. So we're looking at the Veterans Affairs Department here, over 475 million in just 2020 total sales. Now this is a specific NAICS code, just so you know. These are different award histories based on NAICS code as well. So we're talking about, in Department of Veterans Affairs, we're talking about 215 million with regards to data expenditures here, okay? So in September. Then it dips down in October, November, December. The fiscal year ends September 30 of any given year. That's why the spike in the expenditures. Then it calms down. It slows down November, December. The holidays come into town. They start, finishing up contracts and go out for vacations and so forth. January, February, March, slow. Now, this is based on top 25 award history of departments. Then we're talking about the top 10. I also referenced the Department of Veterans Affairs here with regards to, again, dollar amounts, significant expenditures, and locations. And here's a big one. Interpreting the data with regards to Department of Veterans Affairs and phone numbers, contact information for vendors. So I wanted to show you this based on interpretation of data and let you know, like, this is how the data is referenced. You take a pivot table, you do this, this, and this. Why is it important to make it nice and pretty like this? Because you get to envision it. You get to see it and say, okay, that's my point. That's my point. That's my target. So we missed it this year. So here's what we have to do between now and then. We have to start getting in contact with this person. Remember when I said drop names, shake hands, start building credibility? Don't approach them the first time you see them and say, hey, we're the best at what we do. Because they've already talked about 50 different companies before you that they've met before 3 or 4 times already. So you have to, be humble, walk in, be an expert at what you do, and drop a seed. Let them say, hey, I want to learn more about you. So on that note, I'm going to, is Mark back with me by chance?
I'm here.
Mark, you want to take some questions? What do we have?
Let me see. I don't see any written questions. I'm unmuting everybody's mic. If anybody wants to speak up, it looks like most people are self-muted.
I would love to have him be a part of that too, if possible. If y'all, you work together, we try to make our time, very full meeting, and so yeah. So next week, is there a particular day under time that
Can you mute again, please?
Work well, and I'll see if I can make it work with our.
Okay, I helped.
I wasn't sure if that was a question or not, so I don't know.
No. Someone was having a meeting in terms of that. Guys, if you have a
If anybody has a question, you can unmute yourself and chime in here.
Yes.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right, so I'm just curious, in your experience,
Is this William or is
and relationship building. So I think what would probably realistically work best for me is probably a Zoom.
Okay, who's got the question?
Okay, I couldn't tell if that female that was speaking was asking a question. She sounded like she was 100 miles away.
Is this
so-
Richard by chance?
Can you hear me clearly?
We can hear you
Yeah.
clearly. Is this Richard that we're talking to, or who?
Yes, it is. Yes, sir. Yes, Richard. Yep, with IC Medical. So, just a quick question. I'm trying to determine. We've been working really diligently. We're not just I know a lot of the diverse suppliers are for lack of a better term, paper pushers. Right. So, they're one person at a desk that's more or less just a distributor and helping the government appropriate funds through an SDV, OSB or so forth. Is there a benefit? So my question is 2-point. Is there a demarcation of distributors versus actual diverse manufacturers that are employing, hundreds of individuals? And then the second part to my question is, with regards to being made in the USA, I've uncovered quite a large amount of spend throughout the VAs and the DoD, for that matter, from suppliers that are made in China. And because their micro purchases are under the micro purchase threshold, they don't go out to bid. They get done on credit cards and swept under the rug. And I'm wondering if you've encountered that type of situation before, and what, if anything, we've already reached out to the OIG, and I'm working with a couple politicians as well on this issue. But is there anywhere that maybe I haven't considered approaching facilities? Ironically, one of those is the VA in Cincinnati. I know is purchasing some Chinese-made products where I have, as a WOSB, we're manufacturing an equivalent product of superior quality at a lower cost on contract right here in the United States. Is there a venue for getting that looked at? Is there someone I could approach that maybe I haven't considered? Sorry for the long-winded question.
No, it's a great question. The first answer to your first part of your question is called a relationship. You have to build a relationship with these people, because if they're talking to a paper pusher and pencil pusher and so forth, who's basically moderating or mediating the sale based on, hey, let me go get this company over here, buy the product, sell it to you guys, etc. If I'm a veteran company, etc. It's all about relationships. They had a relationship. They know somebody. They did this. They did this. They did this. Depending on the spend, if it's a simplified acquisition type of contract where they're dealing with a veteran, then they are dealing with a veteran who's getting them the product. And if they're doing it a one-man show and doing it that way, but they're a veteran company, then that's, they're VA verified, they're SDVOSB, they've proven they can provide the product. You're talking about either Dell PCs or medical devices, syringes, something that's being used, constantly, and it's constant reorders on task orders. That's all about relationships. And it just takes time. Like if your second part of the question with regards to, who do you talk to? You have a better product, you have this, so you've identified a competitive advantage in terms of that, your differentiator. When you talk to your, politicians, and you talk to this and talk to that, I mean, you're a woman-owned small business. You're not a VA verified small business and doing business with the VA. Have you approached veteran companies in terms of partnerships where they already have a contract with you and you can present them that? Is there a wholesale price that you sell it to the person? I mean, the question
Sure.
is,
We are a federal supply schedule. We're VA contracted. I've done the readiness. I've gotten the certs, and I got the paper price list. All that's in place. I'm just trying to find if there's any kind of a shortcut. I mean, I understand the relationship part, but a lot of, folks in operating rooms and things, they're busy, in supply chain. It's a tough racket these days for them. And there's not a lot of oversight. I was able to get some of the departments to look at this and remove a couple Chinese-made products from some of the formularies that probably shouldn't have been on there in the first place, but weren't looked at. So I've accomplished that some small wins and diplomatically, in doing so. But I guess I was just wondering if you'd run into situations where, because the Trade America Act and the Buy America Act, you're not supposed to buy Chinese-made products, yet it's being done every day, and it doesn't seem like anybody really, I don't know, I don't want to say cares, but they just don't have the time. They don't have the time, right? They're busy. What they have is working. So if what I'm hearing correctly, you're pretty much reiterating what I thought was the case, and that's really you just have to get at the ground level and get the end user to buy into your differentiations, which would be made in USA, lower cost, things like that. There's not really a shortcut.
I want to give you the golden answer and tell you, go do it this way, and you're going to get $40 million contract or purchase order. You
Sure.
and I both know that with my experience working at the VA and the small business office, I can tell you by experience, it wasn't of no fault of anyone, but I always, every time we wanted to implement something new, it was always met with a challenge, because if we open the door for something new, it's going to create more controversy this way. Maybe it's going to create more, we're already overloaded in work already. Maybe it's going to create this, or this. Now,
Sure.
That's not an everyday thing, but it's kind of like a workplace mentality, because there's just, one person doing the work of 5 people, and there's so much to do on any given day.
That's right.
When you approach them with your product, the point is, Richard, you're in a great situation. Okay, you've already made a couple. You mentioned you've already made headway. You've already moved in, got them to remove a few products and so forth. The question is, how much research have you done with regards to your NAICS code, your supply, in terms of that, with regards to companies who are already supplying them with product? Have you contacted those companies and say, listen, we can do this better? There's no shipping costs. I mean, you're talking their language, because they have to ship the product from China to here. There could be a supply chain breakdown. They could not be able to provide, fulfill the task order requirement, next month, because there's no ships coming to shore and they can't get the product off the boat.
So you're suggesting me trying to work with other suppliers?
Existing
versus
suppliers who are already supplying them from the product of China. That's one. Number two is this: how many you're in Ohio, correct? And you've talked about contacting one of the VH the offices, the hospital clinics, etc. in Ohio. Have you branched out to Florida, Texas? Have you branched out to Michigan? Have you branched out to California? The more buyers of your product you get on your side, the stronger your story becomes. Hey, we do it this way, made in America, made by veterans, made by these people. People with disabilities, for example. There are components you put in place that's make it compelling for them to say, hey, we got to go buy this way. So you're starting to break them down from the supplier side, and then also talk to the doctors and the office managers who are going through this procurement process. And you have to go from different angles. That's why it takes time. But if you add those strategy points and get as many offices on your side who are buying your product directly or indirectly through a supplier who's already doing business with them, they want to make money. So if you cut out the shipping supplies and the taxation and the tariffs and the how much money they're spending just to shipping wise, you're going to save them money. They can charge the same. I mean, if you already have a schedule and you're on schedule, you've already itemized the pricing policy. Is it priced enough to where there's profit in it for everyone?
Yeah, there is, and all that, and again, that that brings up a bigger issue, and I won't digress, but just a broad statement that, being a U.S. made manufacturer, we have increased costs versus making the stuff in China, which is why the TAA, in my argument, the BAA exist. I mean, because we are at a somewhat of a disadvantage, because we're not going over to China and employing Chinese people to make the products. We're manufacturing right here in the U.S., not just distributing. So,
Do you remember?
but
you remember
we're still
early
the same price. We're not.
Yeah, I understand. But you remember early on when I talked about lowest price technically acceptable or
Yes.
best value?
Yes.
Okay, you have to sell them on best value.
Right. And our prices are comparable. We're not more expensive. We're just not at that 20% savings, or 30% cost reduction point that I've historically seen, facilities wanting to move on something. The initiation I need to grab from another vantage point, which is what you're alluding to now.
Yeah, I mean, if you had the product made at a factory with people with disabilities, if you brought in, you're a woman-owned small business, WSB certified, but you're not a VA verified company, or are you?
I think we are VA verified. I'm not sure what you meant by that. I mean, I did get the VA readiness screening done by one of the SB liaisons.
Yes.
And so I think I think he sent back something saying that I passed the VA readiness screen, if that sounds right.
No, that makes sense. But we're talking about VA verification as a service disabled veteran-owned small business or a veteran-owned small business.
Okay, no, we're not veteran-owned. We're just a woman-owned small business.
Okay, is there a possibility of a veteran-owned status, or is not? It's not even a possibility.
Well, it is if I work through a third party, right? I mean, I know people who I have business partnerships of people we could push the orders through that might satisfy that.
Well, that would absolutely satisfy that if those companies have a contract with VA already or are in the process of pursuing that with you. But if
I know somebody who does that we could partner with in that capacity. But again, who does that benefit? Who's the target person? Is it the VISN folks that I talked to about that, or is it just the contract? And again, this is only going to apply to awards that go out for bid. What about all the millions and billions of dollars that are being spent on micro purchases every day at $3,000 orders that nobody looks at? They don't even show up on any of the spend demographics. There's nothing.
That's a great point you bring up, because micro purchases under the micro purchase threshold, 10,000, even 24,999, but there's between $10,000 and one penny and 24,999. There are specifics to that degree of difficulty in micro purchases, but up to 10,000 on a micro purchase with a purchase card holder, yes, they're not recorded based on everything on the FAR and so forth. So they don't adhere to FAR. There's no contracting data like on the SAM, for example, because that tracks 25,000 or above. But GSA and the Smart Pay does deal with micro purchases and the Smart Pay card and so forth. So when I got a call from a company several months ago, and they asked me, "Hey, we just got on schedule. What do we do next?" What do you mean, what do you do next? You don't know what to do next? You got to market the hell out of your product.
Right.
You got to market.
Right.
You got to send email. You got to do LinkedIn. You got to put phone calls and say, hey, we have this. We want to send you this. I mean, getting on schedule, the GSA will say this blank on their website. Getting on schedule doesn't guarantee you one sale.
Right. Absolutely not. Yeah, I know.
What it does. And okay, I see where you're coming from now, and it's based on this. Getting on schedule makes it easier for a buyer to buy your product, but it doesn't guarantee you $1 in sales. You have to market it. Email marketing. You have to market it from two different sides. You have to market it to the buyers, and you have to market it to the end users. What does your product do for the clientele of the VA? Does it help them hear better? Does it help them walk better? market to the people who would, the veterans who will go into the hospital or the clinic and say, hey, I got an email or I got information about this product. You guys have it. This is we don't have it yet. Then when you go in and say, well, yeah, we had someone asking about that. You gotta work that system.
Yeah, I know. I was hoping it would be a little easier. I mean, I don't know why I had rose-colored glasses on, thinking that when I came to this company, and I got us on a contract, which took a year to happen, and then got it, and it's been a year since then, and we've gotten a few trials started at some of the VAs, highlighting our capabilities and differentiating special sauces, so to speak. But
Richard,
I was hoping,
my email down. Give me an email after the call.
Yeah.
Let's touch base and have a meeting, because what I do, my services are based on email marketing, LinkedIn marketing, working with contracting ops, working with that scenario, looking at your capability statement, building the strategy, and really
let's talk.
forward.
Let's talk, because I could use some help.
You're in a position where you did a lot of foundation stuff, but now it's like you have so much going on, you don't know where to start.
Yeah, pretty much.
May I jump in a little bit?
What's that?
This is another Richard. I'm from Eagle Point Express, and I'm an SDVOSB and HubZone. And I hear his pain. And one thing that I've been able to be more successful at, because it's so difficult to be a prime on some of these things, that we have now spent extra efforts just being a sub to someone else as a prime, and let them carry all the paperwork and all the gobbledygook that drives me crazy. I've been in this about 14 or 15 years, and we're having some progress now, but the easiest thing we do is work as just a sub to a prime. And Richard, I might be able to introduce you to another prime that might be easier for you to market your product to.
Okay. Yeah, that would be fantastic. How do I get my contact information to you guys? Can you see it? I don't know if it's visible anywhere or anything.
Well, you have a website. I have a website. You can just, mine is truckingsetaside.com.
Okay.
TRUCKINGSET.
And mine's icmedical.com is very simple.
Okay.
And we're the only U.S. We offer some of the only U.S. made products in this entire space. There's no other company that makes the pencils that we make here in the U.S. And it's a tens of millions of dollars annual spend through the VA.
Let me tell you one thing. Jim Jordan is from our district, and I'm wired into him. It might be helpful to you.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, look me up, and then I'd like to talk to Treep later on, but I'll contact you by email. Okay.
Please do.
Thank you, both of you.
Well,
Okay. Anybody else with any questions?
Yeah, I had a question.
and you are, sir?
Terrence.
How you doing, Terrence? This is Tarek and Mark.
Hi. My question was pretty much was about Rymys. How do a small business know they're ready to approach Rymys like how does that work?
Well, I mean, approaching Rymys is the first and foremost, and I'll talk to like many startups, for example. We're a startup, we don't have any money, but we have product. Rymys works on a very small, I'm talking very small monthly like retainer, plus a 5% success fee on awarded contracts. Your goal is to get contracts. My goal is to get you a contract, but of course there's a success fee on that. Small, of course. But as far as like a monthly retainer, there are companies out there charging between 10, 15, and 25, if not even 50,000 a month to clients and saying, hey, this is what you pay if you want a contract.
Okay.
And as far as Rymys is concerned, it's a few thousand a month kind of thing. And it depends on the types of strategies. If you want email marketing, if you want this and this and this, there's additional services in place to be able that one-stop shop. But as far as, that's what in terms of approaching Rymys is all about, in that sense. If you come and say, hey, we're a startup, we have no money, but we have a product, I'm not in the business of working, for nothing and then on commission only kind of thing.
Oh,
We got to
okay.
pay the expenses and we got to do, we got to take care of those things. We got to keep the company moving forward, pay the expenses. And that's why the success fee covers the majority of things. You know what I'm saying? That's after the fact. But as far as the monthly, it's a small fee.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome, Terrence. But Terrence, let me just emphasize this to everyone too.
Okay.
My goal is to help you guys. My partnership with VetBiz, Veteran Business Outreach Center with Abron and Mark is to help them help you. So there are things that they can help you with as well. My company focus is based on the 6 years I worked with businesses, my previous business experience at MBA and so forth before even with the VA is based on working with businesses and developing projects and so forth. So for me, it's been years I've been working with data and I've been interpreting data. It's been years that I've been managing projects and implementing solutions and so forth. So my time at VA allowed me, I talked to contracting officers, I did surveys, I did reference points, I did, presentations with them, even the veteran business engagement, NVSBE, National Veterans Business Engagement, that used to go on pre-pandemic. It's where they have, I would teach the veteran companies and companies how to be ready to go and meet with, the people down there. So I'm an extension to VBOC in terms of Aaron and Mark in terms of the what they offer. So
Okay.
that's what I want to do. But I want to emphasize that VBOC also provides services that are free, that are to there. If they recommend and say, hey, go talk to Tarek, go Rymys and so forth, absolutely. They believe in me and they believe in my company. Otherwise, I guarantee you they would not have partnered with me to be able to offer you these, these presentations, webinars, and even services if you want to learn more about it. So that's one of the biggest things. And I emphasize to both Richards, that's relationships. I mean, that's exactly relationships. If it wasn't for someone that I knew, I would never have gotten that opportunity with Abron. It's all about
Right.
relationships.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
You're welcome, Terrence. Any more questions, anybody?
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Richard. And then you guys, as soon as we close out today's presentation, don't forget that there's a quick survey. Very simple, very quick. Greatly appreciate your quick responses, and then we'll be able to get you some information as well. And we'll definitely get you out the handout ASAP. And join the LinkedIn. Don't not join the LinkedIn.
Okay, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Tarek, for the presentation. Thank everybody that joined. Again, don't forget the survey after we close out here. And again, if you want to see a listing of all the presentations, Tarek's VetBizCentral.org. I put that in the chat. I put in Tarek's information is in the chat. His website's in the chat. Our website, VetBizCentral.org. You should. There's no excuse if you need to talk with Tarek or myself. You can find us. We're visible. VetBizCentral. I'm trying to get through life anonymously, but what VetBizCentral is out there and can be found. Again, thank you very much. And I am going to end this. Tarek, anything else?
No, I just want to say thank you, Mark, again for a wonderful experience. And we look forward to next week, guys. Again, we're talking about GSA schedules and VA schedules. We're going to talk a little bit about marketing as well. And the week after, we have retail sales. That'll close out the month of March. So be on the lookout for emails, guys. When you get the email regarding the webinars, click on them, open them, and register. And also look for LinkedIn notifications and coming up for next week and the week after. That's it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep. Have a good day, everyone.
We'll see you.
Take care, Mark.